to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
It seems like the group of people who are easily offended are also the people that are easily confused.
And Dale Hummel.
Let common sense prevail.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
I would say hello, but I'm just going to be on. What the fuck is going on here?
I don't know, guys. Just so you're aware of where we're at, we're recording this.
We are not doing our regular scheduled broadcasting program. This is not happening today here, folks.
No, what is it? That all those different colors come up on the screen and loud buzzing sound. That's where we're at, guys. We're
oh my.
We're going to go another direction, and I don't know if we need to apologize for it, but our politics in the show ring will be broadcast and released next week. Obviously, we have some political unrest. Would that be a good definition, Ryan?
Political unrest? That's what you call this. These people have scaled the walls of the Capitol and broke in during a joint session of Congress.
That's definitely unrest.
That's more than unrest. This is the shit that movies are made about.
You do believe it's the beginning of the Civil War?
Yes, I absolutely do.
And you're not trying to exaggerate. You're not trying to.
Nope, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not saying think that's what needs to happen. I'm telling you, I never in my life thought anything like what I have been witnessing would go down.
I would agree that you could never assume that this could happen in our country. And I'm not just talking about scaling the Capitol. I'm talking about what's gone on the past few months with regard to the election. I'm going to go for a reach and talk a little bit about COVID and why it was released or how it was released. We can go all the way back. And I think as we move further into this, our hindsight's going to show some things that you're going to think this goes deeper and affects each of us individually beyond what we ever thought was possible.
I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm not trying to be an exaggeratory, dramatic queen. I'm telling you, this is bizarre. Like, there was a bomb threat at the Capitol. They have locked the senators and the congressmen down, told them to shelter in place because the Stop the Steal Trump people have literally, not only did they scale the walls and the steps and all, they broke into the Capitol. Now, they have the lawmakers in escape hoods right now.
This is not something that should happen in the United States. The riots should not happen. This should not happen. I wish there was no reason for it to be happening. I better clarify.
No, and like my point, and these people are not armed. They're not hurting people. They're just pissed the fuck off, and they're not going to take it anymore.
Okay, let's go but explain the root of what they're mad about. We know what it is.
They truly believe the election was rigged against Trump, and I'm going to say, like I've said since the election happened, I firmly believe there was more fraud, irregularities, and corruption in this election than maybe all other U.S. elections in the history combined. I'm not trying to say it didn't happen. The problem is that the lawmakers, the elected officials, and the Supreme Court, and this even goes to the states. This is not just all the U.S. This is in the states. They don't want to get their hands dirty, and they don't want to bring this to the forefront. Of course, the media is not going to cover any of it. And these people, and I don't think this ends today with the Stop the Steal March for America in Washington, D.C. I don't think that's where this dies.
Ryan, you brought up a key word right there that I want to address. And I agree with exactly what Ryan is stating, and I think all of you out there know where we stand politically and in our views. So may it be skewed? I don't know, but I think we can be as honest and as transparent as possible. In these states, when Ryan says they don't want to get their hands dirty, guess who else didn't want to get their hands dirty? The Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah.
And when nobody's willing to get their hands dirty, corruption can go beyond what we believe it could have ever happened.
No, I mean, nobody wants to inject themselves in the mess and clean it up, even though, I mean, let's just get 100% real fast. The fact that you can vote without an ID is fucking ridiculous. Period.
And you can not only do it without an ID in person, but let's go down the path of these mail-in ballots. Let's go down the path of people just getting ballots that I don't know how we understand the government doesn't do well running things, but when you're sending ballots out to that many people that have died a decade ago or beyond, all of the problems, how is it possible that we can't drive, we can't do this or that without it? We can't get an airplane. We can vote with less than what we can board an airplane with. How's that?
There's lots of places where when you go to buy something with a credit card, they check your ID. I'd say more places than not check your ID to make sure it matches the credit card. But you can just mail in your ballot or walk up, not have it. I mean, people have got to see there's something fundamentally wrong with that.
It defies logic. Nobody wants to get their hands dirty and talk about it. Why do you think that happened? How did we get to this point?
I think what has happened, and I'm not going to say this eloquently enough, but this has, when you're a kid, or little kids, and you do something that you know that you're not supposed to do, but you get away with it, then the next time you push it a little more, and you get away with it again, and you push it a little more. I think that concept where you push it to where you finally get your ass whipped by your parents or whatever, that's what this is. Years and years of, well, we got by with this, so we're going to push it a little further. And Trump getting elected and not being afraid to just say what is actually happening, and I think the fact that it's resonating is not just because he's saying it, but there are a large portion of the politicians that are standing up for him. Not enough, probably, but a large portion that are, and saying this is not right. And they're saying, we're not saying that we can overturn this election, but reform has to happen, or none of the elections moving forward are going to matter or be valid or hold anything. But the American people are literally the parent, and they're fixing to whip the ass of all these people that have let this go on for years and years and years. And I that analogy may not be good enough, but that's the best way that I can come up with it right now.
I like that. That explains it well. And I think the beginning of that ass whooping maybe was when Trump was elected, but that's just the picking up of the paddle. Today, this week, is when enough's enough. And I unfortunately, and I don't think this is how it should have to be done. I don't think we should storm the Capitol. I don't think we should be put in this position, but anything short of what's going on right now isn't going to stop that little bit more. It just isn't. And I don't have another solution.
And again, I can't tell you the number of people that live in America. I really can't. I don't even have a clue. But 75 million people cast their vote for Donald Trump to be president. And I'm going to say that that's a pretty accurate number. And so I'm going to say that a large majority of that 75 million, they're not going to sit idly by now. I mean, you can watch what's happening right now. I mean, they're pissed off and they're not going to take it anymore because they finally got somebody in there that they truly believe had America's best interest at heart, fought for the people, wanted to put America first, and because he wasn't presidential enough or the demon rats hated him so much and wanted him out so bad that they just stole the sumbitch from him, and I don't see them backing down. And Trump's not backing down. He gave a speech that went on for better part of 2 hours, and he's not backing down. And he referenced several times talking about the election reform that needs to happen. They say, sir, this was Trump saying, they say, sir, in 4 more years, it will be so easy. He's like, I'm not interested in 4 more years. I'm interested in what happened 8 weeks ago.
I don't expect anything different from him, and I appreciate exactly what he's doing. Ryan, does it go beyond, we talk about we need reform in the election process. There's nobody listening to our podcast that doesn't probably believe that. Now, because of what's taking place in Georgia as we speak, when the Democrats have control all the way through the process, do you think the Democrats want reform?
No, obviously not, because before we even had the November election, the Democrats were talking about when they had control of all the houses of government, the things that they were going to do to ensure that it never got out of their control again, in terms of the fact they were disband the Electoral College, pack the Supreme Court, make Puerto Rico and D.C. states so they can get more senators and more congressmen. All of those things. They had a plan. And so, no, I don't think they want any type of reform, because what they have done is they have made it easier for them to stay in power. And that's all they really care about.
And we're going down. Remember, we talked about months ago the worst case scenario on this election and what could happen. And I hate to say this, and I obviously I don't have to say it. We're on that path.
They are breaking.
It's happening.
They are breaking down the door of the House chambers at the Capitol right now.
Breaking down the door.
Yep.
Just so everybody knows, Ryan and I are in Oklahoma City at the Cattlemen's Congress. I do not have access in the house we're at. I can't figure out how to run the TV. But I just came back from the grounds to do the recording, and Ryan's had a chance to watch what's unfolding. In the little bit that he's given me, I can't believe what I'm hearing.
They have evacuated all the lawmakers, and the protesters inside are breaking down the doors of the House chamber as we speak right now. Now, if that doesn't show or tell the story of the makings of a civil war, then I don't know what does. This is what happens in third world countries where, there's been corruption for years and years and years, and people overthrow the government and their coups and stuff. This doesn't happen in America.
I can't believe it's happening. I can't believe we can go all the way back to the riots, and 2020 with COVID aside would still be the most bizarre year we've ever had.
But I think COVID's the root of all of it, and that's fucking China's fault. The reason I say that COVID is the root of all of it, because when that got unleashed on us, we had to take unprecedented steps that we've never taken in this country to try to protect as many of its citizens as we could. A lot of it we shouldn't have done, but we didn't know at the time. They did the best with the situation they had. But then the lockdowns, the trying to tell people what they can do, how they can do, who can work, who can't work, where you can eat, no, you can't eat, you can't do this, you can't do that. That's completely against everything that this country stands for and believes in. And so all of that for months, starting back to the start of it was at the end of February, but March, from the mid-March on, it was full blown. All of that pent up anxiety, frustration, literal strife that Americans have had to endure, whether it was financially, emotionally, all of it put together. And we had a traumatizing electoral campaign where one man sat in his basement and refused to campaign, and Trump went out there and did everything he could to rally his supporters, and Biden phoned it in, and then they say Biden's the winner. The thing on the corruption, there's video evidence of people taking suitcases out when they made everybody leave and count votes for them.
And have you heard any prosecution taking place with that?
There's no prosecution of anything right now. There is video evidence of people putting up barriers where they can't see, blacking out the rooms where they're counting votes so people can't watch, whatever. That's not like a rumor. There's actual video evidence of that. So you have all this for months and months and months. Then that happens with the election. And the first thing that Joe does, the first thing that he says is he's going to make a mask mandate for 100 days. Now maybe that's all he's going to do. I don't know. But it's kind of like this snowball that turns into an avalanche, and I don't know where it goes from here on both sides. Like, Trump's already called out for the protesters to be peaceful and not violent. Biden hasn't said jack about this so far today. I ain't heard a word from him.
Nothing. He's not going to until later, until somebody kind of sorts out what's going to be the popular thing to say. And we talk about that snowball turning into avalanche. That's where, and I'm guilty. Until I started this podcast with Ryan, I did not come out on my social media necessarily or publicly speak out or give my opinion on where the situation is from a political standpoint or current events in the world or any of that. I definitely had my opinions. I shared them with family and close friends, but I didn't speak up. And at this point, I know Ryan and I have been calling for this forever. This is what happens when we sit back and assume that somebody else is going to take care of it. We're in a position now because we didn't stop that snowball. We're in the middle of an avalanche. And what you're seeing in Washington, D.C. right now, these people storming the Capitol are doing it from a standpoint that they don't feel there's anything else. They have no other recourse. And it's our own fault because we didn't stop it earlier. We allowed this corruption to continue. It's right in our face. When Ryan talks about that video evidence, I don't know what else you need combined with everything that we know is gone on and the different things that President Trump cited today. It has to change. It has to stop. My biggest fear, and we talked about this path months ago, that this is going to be very, very difficult to get a Republican back in the office because of everything that they can do now to change the process and not allow the fraud to be brought to the surface, investigated, whether it's election fraud, whether it's what you see is going on between China and the Ukraine and Hunter Biden, that's going to now disappear. Is that the best way to put it, Ryan?
They'll sweep that under the rug as best as they can. I mean, I'm just being Hunter Biden's the least of our worries right now.
It is. He is, and I mean that's a sad situation.
I mean, the fact that and he's done so much and like wrong, and so has. And I'm not saying Joe told him to or condoned it, but he also didn't make him not do it, and so he's guilty by association. And so,
he was in the middle of it. Period.
I mean, I'm not saying wasn't Dale, but and Dale talks about how the fact whatever, like from the day Trump came down the escalator and announced he was going to run for president, I was in on day one. You can like go back and check my Facebook. I was in on day one. I have been one of the staunchest supporters of this man. And I think that, again, I thought today we would have some clarity on what happens next. I am now of 100% going to tell you, I don't think there's any clarity. So I don't know what happens from here on out, because these events that have unfolded today, they've never, nothing like this has ever happened in our country.
It hasn't presented itself before, and we're in uncharted waters. When President Trump makes a statement, he's not leaving. Is that the words he's used?
He said he will never concede. He said he wasn't going to leave. He was always going to stay and fight for the American people. And he referenced several times the fact that I'm assuming his inner circle has explained to him that they think in 4 years he will win re-election. And he didn't say that he's not going to run in 4 years. What he said was, I'm not interested in what happens 4 years from now. I'm interested in what happened 8 weeks ago when this election was stolen from me. And he said that several times and in his speech today. And so again, when he says things like that he's not going to concede, I don't think anybody can tell you where we go from here, because this situation has never presented itself before in our history. And I'm not trying to be dumb or ignorant about it, and I'm not trying to cause alarm. I'm just trying to tell you the honest truth as I see it.
And to give you guys even more clarity, and Ryan and I visit, I don't know if daily, but close to daily about things like this. And I was away from any news source and out at the grounds all morning. And Ryan, I touched base with him via text and called him. And I can't, when he's telling me what's going on, I'm having a hard time even swallowing or accepting that it can be happening. And I can assure you the level of concern, the first conversation I had with Ryan this morning, is greater than anything I've experienced as far as just sitting down and saying, okay, things are going the wrong way. This is a problem. Where do we go, Ryan?
Right now, where we're at, these people have literally scaled a wall or kind of a barrier that surrounds the Capitol. They're on the level and it's full outside. Literally, you can't, they're standing elbow to elbow, and they have now broken in to the Capitol, and they are trying to break down the doors of where the House and Senate meet.
Basically, the chamber where they're
right,
placing their votes, and where they were, I'm assuming
they've evacuated all the lawmakers. They've all been evacuated. Well, the thing that, again, none of these people are armed other than Trump flags and stuff. And maybe this is just the media. I'm not seeing anybody trying to stop these people. You don't see policemen, and there was talks of tear gas and all this other stuff, but you're not seeing a big police force come out and try to stop these people, which they didn't try to stop the rioters that were looting this summer and into the fall. So, I don't know.
So what do you think? They take over the Capitol and just stay there?
Again, Dale, I have no idea. And I don't even think this was planned.
I don't either.
Really, because when Trump was giving his speech earlier this morning, he said, when we get done here, I'm going to march with you, and we're going to go down to the Capitol, and we're going to stand outside, and we're going to protest and hope. He said, we're going to cheer for those people that are standing with us, and we're going to protest those who are against us. There was no talk of any of this here.
You did not see this coming at all.
No. And neither did any of the news networks, because they would have talked about it. This was all spontaneous.
Do you think, and there's no question, that the apparent direction that the Georgia Senate race is going has probably fueled this fire and pushed it even further?
I think that was that's the tipping point, because again, they've already called one of the Senate races. The other one they have not called yet, but the Democrat is winning by 16,000 votes. And so when they get that, it's 50-50. If Joe and Cameltoe are put in office, then they control all three branches of government. And
this is that nightmare we talked about. It's unfolding right in front of us.
And I guess with that and everything else, it's just kind of the makings of a perfect storm. I'm baffled by what is unfolding as I watch this go down.
Ryan, let's go a little bit deeper, and I want to be very clear. I'm as far from a conspiracy theorist, and I believe Ryan is in the same position that I am. But I'm not so sure. Nobody, back when Trump decided to run for president, Ryan, do you think anybody dreamed that he could win it?
Oh, no. I obviously, there was some people, because he's way too smart, way too successful, and has way too much money and access to stuff, because he wouldn't have done it if he didn't think he had a chance. So he talked to people. And so there were some that thought he could, or he wouldn't have done it. But no, I would say 90% of the people in this country, even I would say 90% of the people that supported him when he first announced, they're like, there's not a chance in hell.
No, I was there. I not that I didn't want it to happen, but I just didn't think it was realistic. So let's go into this deep state and the swamp, whatever you want to call it. And somebody like Trump comes in, and I mean, he doesn't adhere to any of the old school bullshit. The self-sustaining politician doing everything they can to benefit themselves, and let's not worry too much about the country. Think about how China's been taking advantage. He simply implemented common sense, business sense, whatever you want to call it. And it's things that are very obvious to most of us that have been wrong in Washington. He came in there and turned those things upside down, upset on both parties. I'm not just saying upset the liberals, but there's some conservative, there's some Republicans that are in office that were not really excited that Donald Trump was in the White House. With that said, think about the foreign policy, how he stood up to China, what he's doing out there to try to better our country, put America first, clean that swamp out. And he made a very sincere effort to do it. I think he was doing a great job. As much crap as was thrown at him, he held his ground. The biggest fear those politicians had, not only here in the U.S., but abroad, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, whether it's Ukraine, I don't care where you go to, Donald Trump made them very uncomfortable and put them in a position that their back was against the wall. Considering that, which country's back was against the wall worst with Trump?
I'm assuming China and Russia. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but your point being that his foreign policy, all this, Trump has served, in 14 days, it will have been 4 years. 4 years and did not get into one single war with a foreign nation.
No.
He brokered a great deal of peace treaties with other nations but here's what I'm telling you right now. It's going on in the news. Now, the standoff at the door of the House chamber is an armed standoff. So the war that is happening is now in our country. It's Americans against Americans because it is an armed standoff at the door of the House chamber right now.
Unbelievable.
So he didn't get us in a war with anybody else, but now we are at war with each other.
Exactly. And think about the position he put China in. Just to finish that thought, do you truly believe that there isn't a higher power out there in terms of a political group? I'm not sure that China didn't release this on the world, obviously to benefit themselves. And when COVID's released on somebody at that time, with the election coming up, Trump's chances of winning were almost zero, and he still damn near pulled it off. I think it goes beyond what we're talking about right now, beyond the election fraud, beyond everything. I think there are more people in power throughout the world that wanted Trump out of office than what we can imagine.
Oh no, I don't think any world leader, or very few world leaders, and especially the powerhouse countries like Russia, China, stuff like that, wanted him to win. I have said, I don't remember how many weeks or months ago, I think when all of this plays out, and maybe 5 years down the line, I do think that you will find out that China released this into the world to try to keep Trump from getting elected. I've said that before, and that's not a conspiracy theory. I don't think that's just my belief. I mean, I'm not, that's just what I think.
And I'm right there with you. And I also, everything that's happened with COVID, whether you want to talk about China reducing their population, the way they were going backwards in the trade deals, everything that's happened per COVID has benefited China every single step of the way.
And just today, Russia hacked into the State Department's email account. Today. That happened a couple hours ago.
You know what term I'm going to use, Ryan?
I can only, yeah.
Cold War. And I'm going to say it's not a nuclear Cold War arms race like we experienced with Ronald Reagan, and he obviously brought us through that very, very well. This may go deeper when we talk about cyber warfare and biowarfare. Between those two, there's no need for nuclear weapons. There's not much need for a military because we can turn this world upside down, as we've seen from bioweapons and obviously cyber warfare that China's attacking us from the bioweapons, and I'm sure also trying to hack into things. But Russia is in a full-blown effort right now, as we speak, to destroy us from within via cyber warfare.
Absolutely right. But and here's the thing. If what we're seeing happens today, continues and progresses, whoever is in charge in 14 days, they're going to be sidetracked trying to keep it together here at home a little bit.
While the other countries come in and kick the living shit out of us.
That's what I'm saying. And if it ain't Trump, Biden ain't got a fucking backbone to save his life.
No, remember what China? What are we worried about them for? They're no threat.
I mean, so China owns him. And again, if the Hunter's laptop is any indication of the shit in that family.
And he's senile. He doesn't know what's going on, Ryan. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it, anything. That son of a bitch does not need to be in charge of our country, period. And it's about to happen at the worst time in our country's history, period.
My deal is, I don't think he's actually in charge. He may be inaugurated or whatever, but I don't think he's really in charge. People are going to tell him what to do. But my point is if that laptop that we have possession of and Hunter has all this dirt and shit and smoking every kind of drug known to man and, hookers and God knows what all. With all the spyware and all this other stuff, you don't think all those other countries have that dirt on Joe or more that we don't even know about yet? Come on.
It's I shouldn't laugh about it, Ryan, but I'm
not laughing. I'm saying I think that's real.
It is real painful is what this is. And it's painful for our country. And that is why we're seeing exactly what's going on today. Things that you would never dream of. Does it totally shock me, the riots that took place from those that use the political landscape as an excuse to go steal shit? Not as much as what this does. And these are good conservative people that are storming the Capitol because they have no other direction to go. I'm not saying I want to be there and storm the Capitol. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I understand exactly where they're coming from.
I think you said it earlier. Shots have now been fired inside the Capitol.
Unbelievable. This is a sad day.
But what you said earlier, they feel like there is no other choice. They have no other options left.
And that frustration that we're talking about right here, that all of us are feeling, all of our listeners are feeling, that's what's coming out right now. And I don't know what the alternative is. We've talked about civil war. I'm not saying we're going to stand up, line up 100 troops and shoot at each other. But I'm telling you what, some version, it's not is a civil war going to happen? We use that term, but it's happening right now. It's not, is it going to happen? It's happening. It's not the traditional sense that people think about, but it's happening.
Dale, they're shooting inside the capital of our country. If that's not a civil war, I don't know what is. Well, that's never happened before. So
no, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm right there. And think about how many times the presidential seat has changed hands from Democrat to Republican and back and forth, and it usually goes peacefully. But we're at a point in this country with everything that we've talked about for months that it cannot continue to go on, and that's why people are so upset. And I call it right. Ryan's right. We're in the middle of a civil war. We're not the middle. We're in the beginning of a civil war. Where does it end? I don't have any idea.
And that's the thing, and that's not to be scary or alarming, but in the days and weeks to come, where does this go from here? And
think about China, think about Russia, not their leadership, but their people. As they get more exposure to the real world and what other countries are like and the freedoms that they have, all of a sudden, and think about some of the South American countries. Ryan, do you know who decides who's in charge, it's basically whoever the military listens to is what it comes down to. Whatever party they are has control of the military to enforce by physical force who is in the Capitol, who is in the White House. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we're knocking on the door.
I'm with you, and I think the majority of the people that listen to this podcast, we're kind of America First people.
I hope so, and if they aren't, they can shut it off right now.
Well, no, not just that, but like the one thing that I think is probably just somewhat alarming to me as I try to grasp this and look at the big picture. Our country is looked at upon by everyone in the world as the greatest country in the world because of our democracy, because of what you just said, the peaceful transitions of power that have happened since the beginning from one party to another, not only on a national level, but states. You can go all the way down to the towns, little bitty towns where a Democrat gets beat in the, mayor's race. And for the first time ever, that's not happening. What does that signal to the rest of the world? And again, I'm more concerned about us as Americans, but that's still something that's got to be factored in there, people.
I've had a chance to travel outside the country a significant amount, and I've seen...
As have I.
I've seen people maybe jealous of America and our successes that maybe weren't real positive to Americans in their town or whatever. I can remember when I was in college, I spent a summer in Australia working on sheep and cattle operations, and the older generation there would bring me inside, sit me down at the dinner table, feed me, and spend an hour thanking me for what my parents or grandparents did to keep the Japanese out of their backyard, all of those things that have happened. And all of a sudden, if you look around the world right now, set jealousy aside, we're that shining hope that others could get to. Does that make any sense? The example that the free world, that others that want to be free countries can follow.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. We are that example. We are that beacon of hope, that shining light. And I've traveled extensively in other countries, and my mother is this, like, she'll talk to a stop sign if it would just listen to her. But anyway, so she goes and meets all these people, and, well, we're from the United States. And, like, I've heard it 100,000 times. Oh, my God, whatever. And so that's my thing. I know because I've seen it. I've heard it. I know what the world thinks about our country, how it's held up as this example to be lived up to or, be like. And this is where we are. I'm looking at my TV screen, and they have guns drawn on the floor, house floor. I mean, they have barricaded the doors. This is unprecedented, and
and there's not even anybody in the chamber. No politicians or
no. There's no one in there.
I don't know who we're protecting. We're just trying to keep people out.
And Trump has gone to Twitter and again said that we're the party of law and order. Please respect the men and women in blue and all this. But this is,
guys, this is a hard one for Ryan and I today, and we didn't make any comments about.
This was not what I planned on talking about.
No,
and so it's going to be sporadic and not well thought out and all this other stuff. I was going to talk about a different type of politics, but a lot of people have asked me over the weeks, when are y'all going to do it beyond the circus? And I've just told them, I said, well, we haven't done one yet because nobody knows what the fuck is happening. And I mean, we're basically doing one today because these are unprecedented events that are unfolding
exactly
in our country, in our history. And we're not going to be able to tell you where it goes from here, but it is my firm belief, watching this and this being, even though the event was planned and the protest was planned, it was not planned to scale the Capitol. It was not planned to break into the Capitol or to have a armed standoff. And so where we go from here, I don't know, but I don't see this going gently into that good night, I guess is what I'm saying. Because once you've proven you can do this right here, then it only rallies that side and gets them more pepped up, and it only pisses off the other side more. And so I think this is going to escalate and continue instead of get.
We could hope that this brought attention to things and we're going to get election reform and those type of things. I think it's the tip of the iceberg, similar to the first few riots. As soon as a few of the riots took place, guess what happens?
And not much happened. They continued to grow and continued to grow.
Exactly. When they didn't. And I see this as well. I'm not saying nothing's happening and it's unfolding as Ryan and I are recording right now.
I'm being honest with you. I'm surprised that they're not doing much. I mean, now maybe what's happening inside on the House floor in the Capitol, but outside and up until, I mean, obviously they weren't doing a whole lot because these people breached the walls and got in. So there wasn't a whole lot of resistance. I'm just saying.
Ryan, and I have my phone here beside me, and it just pops up on Fox News. Stunning scene: guns drawn on the House floor, just like you're talking about. I can't even. If you would have told me this day was going to happen, I would have called you the craziest gay. Impossible.
I'm just. I don't even. I guess know how to put this into words.
This is more shell-shocked than I was after the election. And I'm going to be honest, Ryan, beyond the circus immediately after the election, I just didn't even want to talk about it. And that's taking the easy road out or being too honest. But I was sick about things, and it's not something I wanted to get on here and discuss and go through and bring it back up.
That wasn't my deal on it but nobody knew there were all these lawsuits and all these things, and was the Supreme Court going to take up this, and was, hell, we went a week before all the states had been called and all this other stuff. I mean, and then there were recounts and whatever. Well, there's not a whole lot of productivity in talking about, so we don't know what's going to go on here, but we're going to talk about it for an hour. That's not, I'm not that person. I'm just not. And then again, I'm not somebody that I have said, and, I don't want, and we've talked about when we said way back, and it might have been on a Beyond the Circus, that, if Democrats took all branches of government, all this other stuff, I said, I think this could lead us to civil war. I said last week that this, from Monday to Wednesday, that had the makings of a civil war. I didn't want to be right. I'm not happy that I'm right. But that's where we are. And all I could, trying to, inject a little humor in this, because that's kind of what I tried to do. At least we're on the sides with all the guns. I don't know.
I'm telling you, if a civil war took place, and this is going to sound crazy, from the very first time that Ryan brought it up or we discussed it, I've thought through it a little bit. In an organized effort on the conservatives' part, the ones that are producing the food, the ones that have the guns.
That's the thing.
Where we could shut down. It's going to damage the entire country. But guess what? We shut down on food production alone, or transportation to a large part. What happens to these cities that are housing the majority of these liberals?
They're going to be starved out. And
do you want me to tell you what I think about that today? If you had,
I'm sure you think it is perfectly fine.
I'd starve them. I don't even think twice about it.
And I don't think that's things that people don't think about. Again, this may not be a civil war like the first one, where, it's everybody lines up and shoots each other, but we got a lot of other ways that we can cause a great deal of harm and damage and pain on people. And just like you said, the people that produce the food have the weapons. For the most part, most people that are in the transportation industry that actually distributes these essential goods, they're all on the same team.
It's interesting. And again, I don't want any of this to happen. I wish we could find a solution. I don't want what's happening. And you know what? I agree with those people on Capitol Hill right now that have gone into the Capitol. I don't know that I take the same method, but I agree and I understand their frustration. I get it. I don't see, I wish I could tell you I see a path that's going to be bright and cheery. And right now I'm scared that doesn't exist. I encourage everyone again to pay attention, try to become more involved. Let's try to learn a lesson from this, that we can't let a snowball turn into Ryan's avalanche that he talked about. We have to speak up because there's so many logical-minded conservative people in our country that may have voted or may have not. We hope they did, that aren't speaking out. And maybe if we were speaking out 2, 3, 4, 10 years ago, back when it was just a snowball, maybe we could have got this under control.
Not to bring up another, and I think this is another piece of this gigantic puzzle. Our country is not just made up of Democrats and Republicans. Yes, a large portion of American citizens are one or the other, but there is also a good portion of people that don't identify with either political party, maybe don't even vote, like you said earlier. Some of them do, but a lot of people don't. It's not a law that you have to be a registered voter to be an American.
And partially, and it's easy to say, no. And it's easy to see that, or to say, well, my one vote isn't going to make a difference. Can't do that anymore. It can't.
What I find interesting, or what I will find interesting in this, is those people that are independents, or those people that don't or did not vote. What is going to be their stance on this now? Because, and like, I can't stress enough, even though we do talk about this each week, and we have talked about this leading up to the election and after, when they announced that other senator in Georgia going towards the Democratic Party, things have changed. I can't explain to you how dramatically and drastically in the last 24 hours.
And what I'm afraid a lot of us don't understand, if you're listening to us, I think you're more educated in the political side or interested to a certain degree that maybe our listeners do understand. But the average person out there that is probably a conservative and maybe even voted, I don't know that they can comprehend that when the Senate changes hands, it's the beginning of something that is going to be very, very difficult to reverse, because when they can start rearranging things, bringing in Puerto Rico, bringing in D.C., stacking the Supreme Court, all the things that Ryan talked about earlier and we've talked about for months, this is real, people. And when that is done, turning this around is very, very challenging. And maybe those exact people right now that are in the Capitol building that scaled the wall and broke down the doors, I'm sure they understand it, and I'm sure they're frightened, and I'm sure they're acting out in part because they see what's coming.
And maybe you're right. Maybe not everybody can grasp that on the level, but also I don't know a single person. This is going to be covered on every news. Now, I'm not just talking about mainstream media. When people get off work today and go home and watch the nightly news, this is the story, the lead story. They will grasp this right here.
This is not the lead story just in this country. This is going to be worldwide.
The lead story in every country in the world.
And that is a sad day when not only this, but when
they have now got ropes, and people are still scaling this wall up on
this is just terrible, Ryan.
Like, this isn't ending. But this is the lead story on everyone, and everybody in America, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, or didn't vote, are going to realize the severity and the implication of this. And it's going to make every single person that lives in this country and beyond, but it's going to make the people outside of this country think, what, if I was an American, what side would I be on? But I promise you, there's not going to be one American that doesn't think tonight, okay, so where am I going? What am I doing? because this, I can't even stress how impactful this is. And
disheartening to me. The whole process, not just the invasion of the Capitol, everything that's led up to this. It's hard for me to focus on other things I'm doing. I'm at the Cattle Congress. Ryan just got into the Cattle Congress. It's almost like normality yesterday out there. People are showing cattle. It's life is good. All the things that those that listen to our podcast value were taking place. It's still taking place today. But instead of walking up to somebody's stalls and talking about their cattle, guess what the first thing we're talking about? The only thing we're talking about is right here what's happening.
And you went back to the house that you're staying at to record this podcast. And so none of the way out there Western shit had happened before you left the grounds.
No, this morning was simply about the Georgia Senate race. And that was impactful in itself.
There has been a victim in the shooting at the Capitol.
Oh, Jesus.
Guys,
and obviously we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon, early afternoon, and
we hope that we'll be able to give an update tomorrow. I mean, we always release, Thursday at midnight. We're going to try to give a quick update tomorrow to put on the end of this. We don't know. That'll depend on a lot of stuff, but there has been a shooting victim at the Capitol so far, at least one.
I hope we can come through this somehow, Ryan. And you know what? While we're fighting, and you've already said it, as we're fighting amongst ourselves, Russia's cyber hacking into everything they can.
Yeah.
China is working up. Guess what, guys? And I'm going to be the doom and gloom today. And I wanted to come on and put a positive spin on it. And Ryan tells me beforehand, good luck, because there is none. It just doesn't happen.
That's. I mean, Dale's like, well, how do we? I said, Dale, you haven't witnessed what I've witnessed. I can only tell you so much. But if I had been you or anyone else and not sat here, I wanted to watch Trump speak this morning because I thought, and he was supposed to speak 2 hours before he actually did in true Trump fashion. He was always late. I wanted to hear him speak because I thought this would probably be the last time that he would address the nation or address a large crowd as president. So I wanted to hear what he had to say. And that's why I stayed here. And then it was 2 hours late. And this just started unraveling. If I had not been sitting here watching this and someone came up to me and tried to explain it to me, there's no way to grasp it.
Ryan was trying to explain it to me, and I'm thinking he's got to be confused, exaggerating, and he's nothing but getting frustrated with me because I'm not listening. Don't believe him.
They have now taken out windows, and they are going into another side of the Capitol right now. They've busted through windows, and they've taken out a huge window, and now they are going into the Capitol from another direction.
I appreciate that Trump came out and tried to. It doesn't matter what anybody says at this point. What's happening there isn't going to sway in the next few hours.
I think that's something that maybe I haven't emphasized, and maybe but this is about Trump, but this is beyond Trump.
And guys, and I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to sound very prejudiced towards one party or towards what we believe in. But when the extreme left, or those, not even left, I don't know if they have a political affiliation, those rotten-ass thugs use different controversy to justify breaking in, rioting, looting, that doesn't completely surprise me. I write them off as ignorant, worthless. You don't want to know where I think that needs to go. But when you have law-abiding, what I would call normally law-abiding, good people doing what's going on in the Capitol right now, I'm going to tell you, not in the traditional sense, one more time, Ryan is absolutely correct. This is a civil war. Where does it go from here? I don't know. I'm hoping that we can find a path to get election reform back under control, to get normalcy, like what we've all grown up with all of our lives, back. I think we're all pretty happy with where the United States was. Do you remember what Chuck Schumer said when he was in Georgia a few weeks ago, Ryan?
I don't listen to that motherfucker.
We control America, then we change the world.
Oh, great.
And that's what's happening. What we remember as the United States and everything that we've been allowed to do and prosper is going to change. I hope I'm wrong, but it's on the path. If we don't do something, it's going to change drastically. And I'm pretty damn happy with where it's been in general. And I can't explain all of those things. I pulled up this morning before all this started happening, worried about the Georgia race. There are 30 countries out there that their marginal tax rate is exceeding 50%. We're about ready to step into that realm. And now I'm not talking the top earners. That's the average person out there. As soon as that happens, yeah, everybody can say, let's put a tax on the wealthy, the top 1%. It doesn't affect me. Let's overwhelm them with taxes, even though they're going to back down and find ways to evade it or not make the money because you don't want to, there's no incentive to. But when the average person in this country approaches 50% marginal tax, that's going to be pretty hard to swallow.
What is happening right now? Trump started this when he ran for president, got elected as president. That started all this. And the corruption that happened and the rigging of the election is what, right, all that. Trump started this. What is going on right now today at our Capitol goes beyond Trump. This is, and because he didn't tell them to do this, this is Americans saying, we're not going to fucking take it anymore.
It's exactly what it is.
And
I would tell you right now, if Trump had a choice, he would tell them don't do this.
No, he's tweeted it. He said it several times this afternoon. Don't not do this. But this has gone beyond. This is way deeper than just Trump remaining president.
And Ryan, you predicted this exact thing happening when this was all beginning to organize. You said, look at how many people showed up in support of Trump before he even called for it. Yeah.
I said this last week that this, and again, I didn't want to be right. And Dale always thinks that I love being right, which I do. But I did not want to be right about this. But I saw this going down this way. And I don't know how. And the only way that I know that, because I said it last week, so you can go back and listen. But I saw this in my mind heading this direction.
Ryan, I don't know what more we can talk about. We've gone over when the Georgia Senate goes the wrong direction, what's going to happen. I can't even begin to approach where we go from here with the beginning of some form of civil war. I talked briefly about China. Guess what, guys? When they threw the COVID virus out there, I'm not, don't take this as though I'm undermining, because I have friends that have lost family members. I'm not undermining that it wasn't lethal. But do you want me to tell you what the reality of it is? They have the ability, no question in my mind, to release another virus that's probably more contagious and absolutely more lethal, to the point of 50% greater. They, at whatever level they want to release it. So when you talk about biowarfare, you talk about cyber warfare, we're knee deep, asshole deep in it, wherever you want to go, and we're fighting amongst ourselves. This is not there's not a positive path that I see at the moment. And by God, I hope we pull our heads out and come up with one.
And I mean, like I said, maybe there'll be an update tomorrow. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But like, I think the one thing that I want to say is wherever this goes from here and wherever this leads us, we need to remember what America was built upon and what it's about and what we as Americans stand for and what so many of our troops and servicemen and women have died for. And that is to keep us free. And wherever this goes, reflect on that and know that we still, despite this unprecedented and probably the darkest time in our history, we still live in the greatest country in the world, and we are all exceptionally lucky to be Americans, even with all this.
Absolutely, Ryan. And we're going to find a path out of this. And I apologize for taking it in a negative direction and not maybe complimenting what our country is. But let's hope that we as Americans, we have a lot of things to face outside of our country. And if one thing has happened in the past, when threatened from outside, we come together and we pull together and we get our shit together and we stand up as one. And I have been frustrated when we talk about Joe Biden saying, well, we all need to unite right now after he shoved it right in our rear end over so many different things. And there was no such thing as coming together while President Trump was in charge. And if we could have, so much could have gotten accomplished. But we have proven in the past, when threatened, and I'm taking it to a larger scale than just what's happening at the Capitol, when threatened by the cyber warfare from Russia, the cyber warfare and bio warfare that were being presented from China, we need to get on board, get together as Americans, stand up and protect ourselves and take us back to a place that we all love and enjoy.
So there you go.
Ryan, we're going to come back next week with our politics in the show ring, which will be very lighthearted compared to today. I promise. I'm sure there's going to be events that unfold, and we're going to keep them in our current events. Maybe throw out a Beyond the Circus that's more just about current events and what's going on in our country. But we do appreciate all those listeners out there, and I feel very comfortable that you guys are on the same page as Ryan and I. Maybe not what we think needs to happen or how to fix it, but we all have the same goal. Let's keep that in mind. Let's try to come together as best we can and speak up and make sure everybody knows where we stand. And we want America back.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you.
Crazy times. And
apologize that I've been out of the news era. And Ryan and I I'm heading back to the Capitol Congress, and Ryan's going to meet me out there, and we're gonna put a smiley face on a pretty bad day somehow.
And until next week, y'all just stay safe. And I would say y'all come back now you're here, because it's always funny. But most importantly, stay safe and reflect on what it is to be an American.
Thank you, Ryan. We will see you guys next week.